In today's lesson, we are going to look at the immune system, and it follows on from what we did in the last lesson, which was chemical and physical barriers. So in the last lesson, we looked at the different ways that our body has adapted to keeping pathogens out. So for example, we're covered in skin, we've got mucus in our nose and throats, and we've got hydrochloric acid in our stomachs. But despite all of these barriers and these defenses, pathogens will find a way inside your body. And the second part of our defense is the immune system, which will respond when those pathogens get inside our body. We're going to just jot down a few notes. Okay, so if pathogens pass our physical and chemical defenses, and if you haven't watched the previous video, then make sure you do, because you need to know your physical and chemical defenses. So if they pass those physical and chemical barriers, they will cause an infection. Okay, and then your body will respond to that infection. The body will respond to this infection using its second line of defense. So our first line of defense are just our chemical and physical barriers, our skin, mucus, ciliated cells. If pathogens cross that first line of defense, the body will become infected, okay? But the body will then respond to that infection using its second line of defense, okay? The second line of defense is the immune system, which is our title of today. This is called the immune system. So our second line of defense, okay, is going to be the immune system. And when we're looking at the immune system, if you cast your mind back to one of our earlier lessons, we looked at the different types of blood cells. And we've already talked in yesterday's lesson about platelets and how they help defend your body against pathogens. So if you cut your skin, platelets will form a scab. They'll stop pathogens entering through your skin. But there was another blood cell that we mentioned a while back, white blood cells. And at the time, we just wrote fight infection. Okay, but now is the time that we are going to talk about white blood cells, and we are going to look at exactly how they fight infection. So we're going to jot this down to remind ourselves that white blood cells fight infection. Okay, that you should be familiar with. What you might not be familiar with is that there are two different types of white blood cell, and you need to know them both, and you need to know specifically what they do. Okay, so the two types of white blood cells are phagocytes and lymphocytes. The two types, phagocytes and lymphocytes. Okay, so get used to the spelling as well. That's phago with a PH and lymphocytes. Okay, and we say that white blood cells are part of our immune system. So I'm not going to write the whole thing again. They fight infection. I'll just write it here. Part of immune system. So the immune system will fight pathogens in lots of different ways, but the way we're specifically going to look at is how the white blood cells fight infection. And there are two types, phagocytes and lymphocytes. We're going to look at a little bit more detail what exactly they do. And we're going to start by looking at phagocytes. Okay, so it's going to be our little subheading. And next to phagocytes, I'm going to write that they are non-specific. By non-specific, I mean they will fight all pathogens. So it doesn't matter what type of bacteria, or if it's a virus, or if it's a protist. It doesn't matter what type of pathogen, or even what type of bacteria, okay? Phagocytes don't care. They're going to do exactly the same thing no matter what type of pathogen infects, and they will attack all pathogens. So they're non-specific, they will fight all pathogens. And what they will do, okay, so remember, phagocytes are white blood cells, so they're found in your blood, flowing around your blood vessels. And what they will do is they will surround the pathogens in your blood. And they will, we say, engulf and destroy them. Now, what I mean by this, if I were to show you a video of the actions of a phagocyte on a pathogen, if you watch the video, it looks almost like the phagocyte is eating the pathogen, because it completely surrounds it and it just takes the pathogen inside itself. But we can't say eat, okay? Phagocytes are a blood cell. They are not capable of eating anything. Okay? Eating is one of the processes that living things can carry out. And we can't say that a white blood cell can eat something, but we can say that it surrounds the pathogen, it engulfs it, so it kind of completely surrounds it and consumes it, and then it destroys the pathogen, okay? Now, there are lots of different types of pathogens, but the phagocytes will respond in a similar way to all of those types of pathogens, and they will destroy the pathogens, okay? And that's all you need to know about the phagocytes, but I will just tell you something else. If you cut yourself, okay, and before the scab forms, okay, or when the scab is starting to form, you might see that you might see kind of white or yellow kind of pus. I know it's kind of gross, this kind of white yellow pus in the cut. And what that is, that's actually these white blood cells, these phagocytes. Because if you cut yourself and pathogens start getting into your blood through that cut, okay, that signals the phagocytes, and all of the phagocytes will immediately rush to that part of your body that has the cut, and so many of them will gather there together, trying to surround and destroy all of the pathogens that are trying to get into your body through the cut. And because so many of them gather there, you'll actually be able to see them when they all gather there, and it will look like white pus because they're your white blood cells, and you'll see it as white pus, okay? Now, what if you see that, if you cut yourself and you see that, what that's telling you is that pathogens have gotten into your body. So we say, oh, that cut looks like it's infected, okay? So pathogens have gotten into your body. Your immune system is trying to destroy those pathogens. So what you're seeing is the white blood cells trying to destroy the pathogens. But the fact that you can see the white blood cells in the first place tells you that enough pathogens have gotten in that all those white blood cells rush to that area. Now, sometimes if it's just a small cut, it doesn't matter if you see a few of the white blood cells. But if you had a large wound and it was very infected and there was lots of kind of pus, that's telling you that lots of pathogens have gotten into your wound. Your blood cells are trying to fight it, which is why you can see them. But if it's persisting for a few days and it doesn't look particularly good, then that's when you might need to seek help. And you might take drugs to help your immune system fight all those pathogens which have entered your body. Okay, but that's what you're actually seeing when you see a wound or cut that looks a little bit infected. Okay, so there are phagocytes. The next type of blood cell that we're going to look at is lymphocytes. And we do need to know the lymphocytes in a lot more detail than the phagocytes. So our next title is going to be lymphocytes. And I said phagocytes were non-specific. I'm going to say lymphocytes are specific. And what that means is they will only fight specific pathogens. Okay, and you're going to see why in a moment, why lymphocytes are specific, where you'll have one lymphocyte that will try and fight one type of bacteria, you'll have another lymphocyte that will try and fight another type of bacteria, you'll have another lymphocyte that will try and attack a virus, okay? All of the lymphocytes are different, and each lymphocyte is specific to only one pathogen, okay? So it's a specific immune response. And in order to understand how lymphocytes work, we need to know that all cells, and when I say all cells, I am including our own cells in that. So your own cells in your body. So including our own cells, but also the pathogen cells. So the cells of pathogens, like different types of bacteria cells or fungus cells, okay? All types of cells have molecules on their outer surface called antigens. This word here, antigen, is very important. All right, so we're just going to draw a little diagram to show what I mean by this. So if I asked you to draw an animal cell, okay, so remember human cells count as animal cells, and if I asked you to draw an animal cell, I would really be hoping that you would all be able to do it. Animal cells don't have a cell wall, so I'm going to draw it as a bit of a blob. And I'm going to draw a dot in the center, which is my nucleus, and we should hopefully remember that this on the outside is the cell membrane. And there are other things that you can draw on there, like mitochondria and ribosomes of cytoplasm, but I'm not going to bother labeling any of that, okay? I'm just going to label this as a human cell, just a generic human cell. And I've said that all cells, including our own, have molecules on their outer surface called antigens. So we would never usually draw an antigen if you were asked to draw a human cell, okay? They're very, very small, but I'm going to draw them like a little Y shape, okay, like little spikes. And I'm going to draw them all along the cell membrane. And I'm going to label these as antigens. So what I've described in the sentence was that antigens were molecules on the outer surface of the cell. So I've drawn my cell, and on that outer surface, I've drawn these little shapes, and I've called those antigens. And you find antigens on all of the cells in your body, as well as our cells. If you had a bacteria cell, and hopefully you remember how to draw a bacterial cell, I'm going to draw a cell membrane and I'm going to draw a cell wall for a bacteria. I'm not going to draw a nucleus because it is prokaryotic. It does not have a nucleus, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have DNA. It has a plasmid and it also has chromosomal DNA. And some bacteria have this little tail called a flagellum. Okay, I'm not going to label everything. I'm just going to write that it's a bacteria cell. Okay, and on the bacteria cell, I'm also going to draw antigens, and I'm going to make these a slightly different shape because all antigens will be a different shape. So I'm going to make these a kind of a square shape. Okay, I'm just making up these shapes. I don't know what shape it would be. Okay, but these are also antigens. Okay, so all cells, our own cells, pathogen cells like bacteria cells. I could draw a fungal or a fungus cell. Okay, they'll all have antigens on their surface, okay? And your own body can tell the difference between the antigens on your cells and then the antigens on a bacteria cell. So your body will recognize that difference. Recognizes the difference between the antigens on your own cells and the antigens on pathogens. Okay, so you've got antigens on all of your cells, but your body knows that your cells are supposed to be there. It recognizes those antigens. It knows they're supposed to be there. Your own cells are not going to do your body any harm. But when pathogens enter your body, the immune system will recognize the antigens, okay? And it recognizes that those antigens are foreign, that they're not supposed to be there. They're not supposed to be in your body, that they don't belong. It's the antigens that your immune system can recognize, okay? But you have to remember, it's not just on pathogens. You've got antigens on every cell. So it's really important that your immune system can recognize the antigens on pathogens because it knows that they're not supposed to be there, and then it knows it needs to respond and try and destroy those pathogens. But sometimes it doesn't work in your favor. So for example, if you're somebody who needs a transplant, so you've got a bad heart and you need a heart transplant, okay? You get that new healthy heart from somebody else, that heart is going to have lots of antigens. Your body doesn't recognize those antigens. It thinks that that heart is not supposed to be there, and your immune system can attack that new organ that is there to keep you healthy, okay? So it's not just the antigens on pathogens that your immune system will recognize and try to destroy. It's the antigens on any cell that is not normally part of your body. The immune system will recognize those antigens and it will try to destroy them. But your immune system does know your own antigens that are on your own cells and knows not to destroy them. Okay, I'm going to continue with this in the next video.